Okay, Council, just before we start our regular meeting at 7 o'clock, we just have a few housekeeping issues to finish up our special meeting. So item 4.2 is a rise and report, and we're rising and reporting at 6:59, and that's moved by Councillor Van Berkel and seconded by Councillor Payne. All those in favor? That's carried. Then we have item 4.3, which was the first item we dealt with regarding committee membership. And that's moved by Councillor Van Berkel, seconded by Councillor Waters. All those in favor? That's carried. Item 4.4 was our discussion around acquisition and disposal updates. And that's moved by Deputy Mayor Davidson, seconded by Councillor Ices. All those in favor? That's carried. And finally, the labor relations and employee negotiations 4.5, Councillor Nicol, Councillor Van Berkel, all those in favor, that's carried. Then our confirming bylaw is moved by Councillor Fowler and Deputy Mayor Davidson, all those in favor. And finally, our adjournment of our special council meeting is moved by Deputy Mayor Davidson, Councillor Arsetti, all those in favor, and that is carried. So we are finished our closed session just at 7 o'clock, so that's perfect timing. So we'll now open our first council meeting of the month of November and ask that if anybody has their cell phone with them, if they could turn it to silent, or if they are going to deal with it, if they could just take it out to the hallway. Let you know that public comments made during this meeting are audio and video recorded. We are live streaming, so thank you for those of us who have joined us live streaming. And that everything that, all those that's recorded will form part of the public records, which will be retained according to the town's retention bylaw. And for more information about our retention bylaw, you can speak to the lovely people in the clerk's office. So just before we open tonight, I want to thank everybody for being here. We haven't got much of a crowd tonight, which means that we haven't been doing anything terribly wrong the last couple of weeks, I suppose. But thank you for coming out on a snowy, cold evening. And those of you at home in your pajamas watching online, thank you as well. And to staff and council. And I would like to start by just, we normally do announcements at the end of the meeting, but there's a couple of announcements I would like to make now. And that's in recognition of some community leaders that we've lost in the last couple of weeks. Doris Pocius. Doris was passed away on November the 5th, and she served on this council from 1988 to 1994. Her and her husband, Vic, were a longtime residents of Innisfil, and the visitation was actually held today in Newmarket, and the funeral is tomorrow in Mississauga. In 2009, Doris and her husband generously donated the funds for Innisfil's first historic mural at the Lefroy Recreation Center. And I know she was a wonderful and feisty member of this council and also of the library board, and she will be greatly missed. We also lost another very close member of our family, and he passed away November the 11th, and that was Blake Constable. Blake served on council as councillor and deputy reeve starting in the 1970s. He was the husband of our Susan Downs, who's our chief librarian and longtime resident. And the visitation is this Saturday in Bradford at Scorchucks, and the service will be held this Sunday at Churchill United Church. Blake was a very outgoing personality. He loved theater, he loved music, he loved dancing. You could often find Blake on a Friday night singing karaoke, Frank Sinatra songs at the Iron Horse in Cookstown. And so the Iron Horse is hosting a karaoke wake for Blake tomorrow evening in honor of his passion. And that will happen tomorrow at 8 o'clock if anyone can make it. So I'd like you to keep the families of these two amazing people in your thoughts and prayers. And you'll have noticed that the flags are half-staffed to honor their memory and their dedication to our community. So now I will move to open forum, and we have no one signed up for open forum this evening. So we'll move to our approval of our agenda, and we do have one addition to the agenda, which is a delegation from Sandy Foster, our Health and Wellness Catalyst. So could I have a mover and a seconder for the agenda approval? Councillor Fowler, Deputy Mayor Davidson, is there any other changes required to the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Next, we'll have disclosure of pecuniary interest or conflict. Does anyone have anything to disclose on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, if something comes to your attention during the meeting, please just bring it to the clerk's attention. Next item is presentations and petitions. So tonight we're very honored to have with us a Team Canada member of the World Dance Competition that happened in Germany. And Team Canada won bronze medal this year. And I want council to congratulate Sabrina Stallone for her bronze medal. And I'm just going to come down and present you with a little plaque, Sabrina. Thank you. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming in this evening, but also thank you for making Innisfil on the world map and traveling to Germany and making us all so proud. We're happy to support Sabrina through our Inspiring Innisfil fund, and we're very happy to see this happen to you, and we hope that there's many more medals in your future. Oh, that was a great way to start the evening. So now we just need a recommendation to a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Davidson and Councillor Orsatti, all those in favor? That's carried. Let's hope that we get a lot more young people in like that. It's quite a treat. Next, we have a delegation, and this one is regarding our health and wellness strategy, and it's going to we welcome Sandy Foster, who's our Health and Wellness Catalyst, to come up and make her presentation. Welcome, and thanks for coming, Sandy.
Thank you for having me. It's a tough act to follow. So good evening, Mayor Dolan, Deputy Mayor Davidson, Council, and my fellow staff members. Thank you for having me here to share my vision for expanding our health and wellness strategy and focus here at the town of Innisfil. Great. So I'd like to outline our past and present focus on health and wellness here at the town of Innisfil. In response to Innisfil residents' growing concerns over relocating healthcare providers, the 2010 to 2014 Council established the Innisfil Community Health Committee to determine how to best address local healthcare needs. That same council also supported the Innisfil Community Health Committee in collaborating with York University School of Nursing and Georgian College's Research Analyst Program to engage in some research to help us understand what the community health and wellness concerns were and how we could potentially address them. The next council, our 2014 to 2018 councillors, used this research information to help build a case and start planning for the development of a community health hub, which we now know as the Rosardo Health and Wellness Center. The Rosardo Health and Wellness Center has brought a lot of healthcare services and programs to our local residents, which is a first for Innisfil. Jumping to 2019, so the councillors that sit before me today have committed to improving residents' health and wellness in Innisfil through supporting our membership in the Berrien Area Ontario Health Team Planning Table, where we've been working with community partners and community healthcare providers and local agencies to help plan how health and social services will be provided here for our residents of Innisfil. In October of 2019, the same council generously approved Innovative Innisfil 2030 and committed to the strategic objective of enabling community health and wellness. Right now, the Rosardo Health and Wellness Center is expanding their operations week by week, with more tenants moving into the building and offering healthcare services to our residents. So the town's health and wellness focus has spanned 3 council terms, and we're hopeful that this council will help us expand our health and wellness focus beyond that of providing residents with access to healthcare and help us focus on addressing the social determinants of health or the broader underlying factors that affect health and wellness. Council's approval and development of the Rosardo Health and Wellness Center clearly demonstrates our commitment to providing residents with the resources that they need to be healthy and well. And we're working with, expanding our focus to all factors that influence health and wellness will help us to wholeheartedly protect our biggest asset, our residents. We at the town are very good at developing and implementing innovative and adaptive solutions to complex problems. Health and wellness is one of these complex problems because it has many intertwined determinants that ultimately affect residents' health and well-being. We also have great influence over the root causes of health in all of the programs, policies, and service that we directly provide to our residents. Lastly, Ontario's healthcare landscape is changing, with the provincial government introducing the model of the Ontario Health Teams. Municipalities now have more responsibility and more of an opportunity to provide direct input into how healthcare services are delivered to our residents. And public health modernization, which is proposed for the spring of 2020, may result in increased municipal financial contributions and responsibilities for how public health services are delivered to our residents. The proposed community health and wellness strategy, which we're calling Our Health, outlines a detailed, planned, and coordinated approach to addressing these underlying factors that affect individual health and wellness. Supporting this expansion will allow us to be a municipal leader in protecting and providing for our residents. It will also guide the town and our many community partners to work together and build on our strengths, the strengths that currently exist in terms of health and wellness programs and services, but providing them in a more coordinated and strategic way. Ultimately, we all have a shared responsibility for improving our residents' health and wellness. The vision for our health is that Innisfil residents are physically, mentally, and socially healthy and well. And we're aiming to create health and wellness opportunities for our residents to be their best selves. The 8 strategic goals outlined in our health really highlight the excellent work that the town and our community partners are already doing so well, and it also provides opportunity for us to expand our focus and really hone in on those underlying social determinants of health. Goal number 1 is that town policies, programs, and services promote all Innisfil residents' health and wellness. Goal 2 is that we continue to create sustainable places that promote health and wellness that can be enjoyed throughout the year. This goal is about continuing the great work that our placemaking team is already doing in developing new spaces and helping to build new environments that promote residents' health and wellness. Goal number 3 is about maintaining a safe and engaged town where residents feel secure and connected. So continuing the work that our fire and emergency services and our South Simcoe police force does so well, our community engagement team, and continuing to ensure that all residents feel secure and engaged, specifically looking to work towards providing programming for our more vulnerable populations like our seniors and our youth and our immigrants. Goal number 4 is about improving access to healthcare, social services, and social and community services. So building on or expanding on the good work that we're already doing at the Rosardo Health and Wellness Center and coordinating with our local community partners who are already offering a lot of these services, including mental health, and bringing all of these services here for our residents to access. Goal number 5 is about providing residents with the basics, so housing, employment, and income. Goal number 6 is about protecting and providing for our children and youth to ensure the success of our future generations. Goal number 7 is about promoting personal health behaviors. So developing in-house healthy public policy that helps make the healthy choice the easy choice for our residents. Specifically looking to build off community assets that already exist and collaborate with our existing partners. Goal number 8 is about leading and participating in research that identifies and acts on our health priorities, helping us to identify where the gaps are and helping us to learn where we should focus our efforts. So keeping in line with Innovative Innisfil's vision of community first, future next, balance always, receiving council's support for this enhanced or expanded vision of health and wellness will ensure that we can properly focus on our community's biggest asset, our residents. In the short term, implementing this strategy will lead to better partnerships, more coordinated programs, reduced duplication of services and programs in the health and wellness realm, and ultimately efficient and effective programs that meet our residents' needs. Ultimately, what we're working to achieve is increased health and wellness and quality of life for our residents. Together, we can make the healthy choice the easy choice for our residents through committing to be their biggest champion and helping them to thrive now and for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Questions and comments from Ms. Foster? Seeing none, I'm going to just make a couple of comments. The way the government is changing how healthcare is going to be delivered in our region is just so is changing so quickly right now. Could you just expand a little bit on the meetings that you've been attending with the health team?
Right. So I'm fortunate to have to sit at the Barrie and Area Ontario Health Team Planning Table, where we have been coordinating and developing a plan to submit to the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care to become one of the Ontario health teams. We've submitted that full application, and we are currently awaiting response from the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, and who has reported back to us that we should hear before the end of 2019.
Thank you. And the other component is through the Solicitor General's office that the all police services are going to have a community safety and well-being plan. I can't remember when the deadline was that for, but could this also help populate what we're required to have done for our community safety and well-being plan?
Yes, absolutely. So I believe in objective or goal 4, which speaks to promoting or improving access to healthcare, social and community services, there is an objective that specifically outlines collaborating with South Simcoe Police and Bradford West Gwillimbury to develop and implement those plans. I see a lot of overlap happening between that community safety and well-being plan and this strategy. As I mentioned during the presentation, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're really looking to coordinate programs and services that ultimately can help our residents be their best selves. So yes, I see a lot of overlap and potential opportunity.
Thank you. My last comment would be how grateful I was. It was maybe a week ago, I had a resident reach out to me who was desperate to receive some help for a mental health crisis for a resident. A year ago, I would have answered that email to say, sorry, we don't have anything here. And with Sandy's help, I was able to list about 5 options for support through mental health that are right here in our own community. So it felt so good to send that email this year versus the one I would have had to send a year ago. So thank you for that.
And it speaks to the great work that former councils and all of you have supported in the last year or so. So thank you.
Other questions? Councillor Setti.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the great report. A lot of good detail in that. And just for those that are listening at home or watching this online, the current, I think it's the sheet metal workers that are on strike. There's 7 remaining tenants for the building that you're looking at early occupancy. If you could just speak on that, thank you.
So unfortunately, during the summer months, I believe it was August, I think it was a 3 to 4 week period. Jason Inwood may be able to speak to this a little bit better, but the sheet metal workers were on strike, which impacted construction deadlines. Jason, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, there's actually a couple of trades that had, one trade that had a very short strike, and then the sheet metals that took, I believe it was nearly 2 months they were on strike, which has impacted closing, but we're making ground, and as noted earlier tonight, new doors will be opening in the weeks ahead.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Payne.
Thank you. My concern right now too is a lot for the seniors. There's so many seniors that can't afford to go to a care center, and they have to stay at home. So we really have to buck up on the home care programs that they can go and assist the seniors, even if it's making them a little meal in the afternoon or something, because we're having so many issues there where there's no place for them to go other than stay in their home, and they need to have assistance. And I know there is some out there, but we just have to work on that.
Right, okay. Thank you, Councillor Payne. In developing this strategy, I had the benefit of meeting with a lot of members of our senior leadership team and a lot of council members and your worship. And I know that seniors repeatedly came up, and know that seniors, although they're not specifically spoken to in the high-level goals, know that a lot of the objectives do include initiatives for seniors, because I recognize the importance of that population in our community. And a lot of the goals really do touch on some initiatives for our seniors and our youth populations. And
I know Ms. Foster's partnering also with the Simcoe County, which provides a lot of support. They have the age-friendly community, and they also have long-term care homes and reach out for seniors as well. lots of hands, but the really neat part about this is it coordinates so that all these hands know what the other hands are doing, and we've got some coordination right here in Innisfil. Seeing no more questions or comments, I want to thank you very much for your presentation tonight and ask for a mover and a seconder for the recommendation to receive as information. Councillor Payne and Councillor Fowler. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. Next is item 7, which is our County Council, Municipal Association, Conservation Authority, and Committee updates. Is there any updates from anyone they'd like to bring forward? Seeing none. Item 8 is our consent list. So we will head through this list. If the items are not pulled, that means that the recommendation that is printed in the agenda that you have will be confirmed at the end of the meeting. So if you're here for a particular item and it doesn't get pulled, that means that this recommendation will be carried. And then items that are pulled for further discussion or for amended recommendation will be brought into committee of the whole. So I'm going to start with item A1, minutes of the special council meeting, October the 23rd. Minutes of the regular council meeting, October 23rd. Minutes from the Innisfil Beach Road Ad Hoc Committee report. Next is the town operating and capital budget update. Councillor Fowler's pulled that. Oops. Next is the prudent investor standard for municipals. C3, the proposed health and wellness strategy. C4, the Cooks Hill South Security Agreement and Subdivision Assumption. Councillor Nicol.
I don't need to pull this. I just want to thank staff. I'm just so happy that we finally addressed all the flooding concerns in Cookstown there. This has been on, I've been in this chair for 5 years and it was here before I started, so I'm just so glad it's all been taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. C5, the parkland adjoining 1945 Innisfil Heights Crescent. That's another legacy issue we've been dealing with for many years. C6, the AMO's report on municipal liability and insurance costs. I just would point out that this is something that we hopefully will make a difference when joint and several becomes something that the Attorney General deals with, and hopefully it'll get insurance costs in municipalities to stabilize. C7, the volunteer firefighter policy update. C8, the town of Innisfil's Scrooge the Ticket campaign. I just want to thank staff for bringing this forward again. It's always a really popular program, so thanks to the bylaw enforcement team for the work on this. C9, the 2020 council meeting schedule. D1, the third quarter financials. I'm wondering if we're going to talk about operating, if we shouldn't possibly be pulling that too, just in case it's probably a complimentary report. If somebody wants to pull that, thank you, or Deputy Mayor Davidson. Next is the action tracking list, third quarter. Very helpful, thank you for that. D3, the EA for the 7th line. Bylaws, so bylaw, the first bylaw, and the only bylaw on tonight. So is anybody pulling that? No? Okay, we're just rolling right through here. Next is correspondence for information, County Council update, International Day of Persons with Disabilities is on December the 3rd. The several ministry announcements dated November the 1st. I'll just, if I could make one comment about that, and that's about the regional government review. It's a good place for us, although I think we still have to be very, even though the threat of amalgamation has been taken off the table, there is still more that we can do, I think, to be more efficient and cut costs. And so that doesn't mean that we won't still be working on that moving forward to find new ways for to modernize and to make our operations more efficient and therefore less costly. And finally, D4, the In-Services Board of Directors meeting minutes. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. I don't know whether to pull it or just looking, there is no report here, and I'm wondering if we refer it back to staff, as there's nothing there.
Mr. Parkin?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, it's listed on the agenda, but the link to the document isn't available for viewing. So we're happy to put that on the meeting for November 27th and provide the link then.
Thank you. So we should pull that and make that recommendation then? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Nicol. Okay, now we move to the consent list. So there were 3 items pulled. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Davidson, Councillor Van Berkel. All those in favor? That's carried. And then we'll move to Committee of the Whole. Can I have a mover and a seconder to resolve to committee? Councillor Fowler, Deputy Mayor Davidson, all those in favor? That's carried. Okay, so our first item, Councillor Fowler, the staff update on the town operating and capital budget.
Yes, I was just looking to have a seconder so I can actually get some questions answered if possible. Thank you. It says here that, sorry, right, Dan Davidson. Deputy Dan Davidson, second, sorry. It says here that the remaining allocated funds from the Friday Harbor Capital Facility Agreement in the amount of $2.5 million be used to reduce the debt and related servicing costs for the Rosardo Health and Wellness Center. I was wondering if we can get an update on that as to like how much money's been put into it and how much debt remains. Is that feasible at this moment in time?
Mr. Treasurer.
Your Worship, members of council. So originally, when staff came to council with the plan, council had approved originally $10.1 million to be debt financed for the and paid over a period of time out of the, I guess, the operations of the Rosardo. Last year, council approved. So we had 2 capital facility agreements, if you recall. One was with Water Sands or the DG Group, $5 million there, and $5 million with Friday Harbor. Council approved us to use $5 million to reduce the debt on the earlier, I think it was earlier this year. So that brought the debt down to $5.1 million. This motion then, we still have funds from the Friday Harbor Capital Facilities Agreement that are unallocated at this point in time. Staff are recommending to use that to further reduce that $10.1 million down to a remaining amount of $2.58 million roughly. And then that amount, we wouldn't formally, we're recommending not to formally debenture it. We would just cash flow it internally and pay it back through operating surpluses from the Rosardo. The Rosardo, if you remember the business case, it runs kind of like a commercial building, and it will generate some surpluses that would then be used to pay that debt off. So that's the bottom line. We're not increasing the budget for the Rosardo. We're only reducing the existing debt that council had previously approved. We're just paying it off internally ourselves with cash that wasn't allocated elsewhere.
Thank you. Any other questions on that? Councillor Waters and then Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just wondering, what is the savings to the town in terms of the interest paid on that debt that we'll see on an annual basis?
It's a good question. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but by paying this down in this manner, we would save about $165,000 a year in terms of debt servicing costs. That's principal and interest. Interest rate is, I think we used 3%, so I don't know off the top of my head what that is, but it's a significant amount of money. When we were originally talking about $10.1 million over 25 years, now it's basically $2.5 million that we would pay off over the next 5 to 10 years. So it's a pretty significant savings in terms of debt interest avoidance by using our own money.
Councillor Waters?
It's always best to pay down your debt, and that's what, when we have a mortgage, that's what you want to do, get rid of the interest payments. So that's always a good idea. Was there any idea in consideration in terms of, since we have a huge infrastructure deficit, in terms of diverting the money to something in that category with this money?
Your Worship and members of council, so really what we're doing is we're shuffling money around. If we borrowed for this and incurred interest and instead put this towards savings, I guess, for future road rehabilitation or something like that, realistically what we could do is borrow for that purpose as opposed to this purpose. This money's currently available. We are programming, I think, certainly all the gas tax money that we're getting, some of the our capital levy that comes in, we're programming that in there currently, but that's something council and staff could look at future. If we want to enhance those other programs, there's nothing preventing us from debt financing that component. I think it's just a timing issue now that we have available funds and we don't have a specific purpose for them, but there's a debt that needs to be retired. So the opportunity was available currently to use that funds in that manner.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Davidson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have no problem. I'm trying to read here. You sent me an email this afternoon that I'm reading, going through carefully. It's 2.5 something million you want to move from Friday Harbor, receive 3 million. Was that, you call it the community benefit policy? Is there any of that was cash in lieu of parkland? First question. No. Okay. So what I wanted, you want to move $2 million over to remove the debt, but there's a balance of around $500 and some odd thousand that you want to use to offset the operations. Is that correct? The operational cost of the hub?
Mr. Davis?
Sorry, I'm not quite following.
Okay, well, as a result, $2 million will still be received from the balance of Friday Harbor. You're saying that you want to use $2 million to reduce the debt of the building, correct?
That's correct.
But you're asking for 524,000 extra. Is that to be used to reduce operation or pay for operational cost?
No, so what's remaining of the $5 million we received from Friday Harbor for the municipal capital facilities, we've committed some of the dollars. Some of the dollars is going to buy a fireboat. Some of it was already previously committed. We came to council back in March with a budget update on the Rizzardo, and we applied some of the money, and council approved that at that point. But we have $2 million still to be received under the agreement, and we have uncommitted dollars of $524,000. So the total of all of that would go towards paying the debt down. So none of it is for operations. It's all to reduce the debt. What we save, and maybe this is the confusing part, is by paying the debt down, then we save operating costs because we don't have the debt servicing costs related to that $2.5 million.
As a follow-up, Your Worship. But it does say here $2.524 million to be used to reduce debt and related servicing costs. Servicing costs, is that not operational cost?
Yeah, so the debt servicing cost, by reducing your debt, now you don't have that operational servicing cost of interest, principal and interest payments.
So you say servicing cost to me is operational cost, is that correct? Should the Rizzardo Health Center not be generating enough money to pay for the servicing of the cost?
It does. So what would happen is by reducing that, we generate, the Rizzardo in itself, because of the commercial nature of it, actually generates a surplus, unlike some of our other facilities that operate on, on taxpayer dollars. This is not taxpayer dollar funded. It actually creates a surplus that helps towards programming costs in other facilities. So by applying this money to reduce that debt, it just means that there's even a larger selection or a larger amount of surplus from that building to help support other initiatives within the town and within the town budget.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted clarification on that. Thank you.
I think I can help, Deputy Mayor. So when it says it's the cost of servicing the debt, I think it's maybe just the wording. Yeah. Okay, other questions and comments? Councillor Orsetti and then Councillor Fowler.
Thank you. Yeah, I just think that it's good to, this is an opportunity with this money to pay down our debt, and we need that, especially in this climate, and the opportunity to use that from the Friday Harbor agreement. What it does is it doesn't impact property taxes. So this is a win-win and an opportunity that doesn't come to us that often. So I think it's a great recommendation that we should move on this.
Councillor Fowler.
Okay, I appreciate the insight and the feedback. The question remains now, just out of curiosity, where are we currently sitting at the cost of the center? Like, have we got a finite number yet that we can rely on, or is it still fluctuating as we move forward? Just one more.
Your Worship, members of council. So back in March, I alluded to it, we came to council to give an update and ask for permission to use some of these funds. At that point in time, the budget was about $22.5 million. But we also got council approval at that time, delegated authority to increase the budget if we had donations for specific purposes, so that we're not coming back to you all the time. And keep in mind, so the budget grows, but so do the revenues. And so since March, we've had two more significant donations, one of $250,000 and one for $100,000. I think the presentations were here. And so the budget has actually grown by $350,000 since that time. So we're just under $23 million. But again, there's no, although the budget's grown, we have revenues that offset that. And so that's where we stand. And the budget, we're working closely with our engineering consultants or our project management consultants. He's forecasting that we're going to be slightly under budget. So this should be it. Other than, obviously, again, if we have, a very generous donor come forward with very specific desire to support something that we took out of the original building, then of course, then we would presumably accept that and grow the budget again to accommodate that cost. But that's, right now we're looking good, just slightly under $23 million and no taxpayer dollars included in that number.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for anyone out there who's watching or listening, we're still happy to take your donations, and there's still a few projects that we'd like to complete, which is that second floor outside space that was not a must-have. It was a nice-to-have. So, but we'd put a lovely plaque up there with your name on it, should you wish to come forward with a donation. Other questions or comments? Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Your Worship. This motion has a lot of points to it, as you can see, and being new to council this first year, I'm assuming that if this motion passes, we have effectively approved a tax increase on we're verifying what we went through in the budget process in January. So we are following through on that budget. When we spent those 2 days in January, there was a lot of assumptions in that budget, and it's great to have the discussion on the Rizzardo Health Center, but when our residents get their tax bill again next year and there's an increase, there's always going to be questions about that. So I guess when I came to the meeting tonight, I was going to put on the table that perhaps because this is such a large motion that we defer as council voting on the budget part of it. It would be nice as an elected councillor to have just a little bit more time to just digest where we're at and what priorities that we've accomplished and what we want to accomplish through into the next year. Not in any way trying to reopen the whole budgeting process, but just for the public to be aware that, you know, this is an opportunity for the next cycle, just to deal with that. So I guess I would make that comment and wonder if any other councillors have support for that. So I would put a motion forward to defer the passing of item 3 and 4 of this motion.
So we have a motion to defer, and was there a certain time you wanted it to come back, Councillor?
Just the next meeting. Yeah, just to have everybody aware that, you know, this is a step, the forwarding of effectively the next year's budget, even though we have already decided the details of it. We're enforcing isn't the right word, but the increase is now, we've given this increase to our residents.
And that's seconded by Deputy Mayor Davidson. And Mr. Rayner, you wanted to speak to that?
Thank you, through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Ices. Certainly, we staff are always prepared to work with council. You know, the entire procedural bylaw is designed around that opportunity to defer where you need more opportunity, you know, more time to get input. What I would suggest to you is that this is actually come under the expectation that the community was expecting, which was 2.6% increase. This is really, really close, but it is under, so it's certainly not over what the community was expecting. And because we work on a multi-year budget cycle, we are already deploying resources on tenders, on procurement, and in anticipation of this piece moving forward. Is 2 weeks fatal? Absolutely not. But I just wanted to put it in context that your entire organization and your community were expecting what we've delivered to you for confirmation purposes tonight. And if there is specific items that you'd like more information on or that you're anticipating, we would really appreciate hearing some of that debate or discussion or information tonight so that we can be well prepared. As you no doubt know, there's only two regular council meetings left in this year, and it's critical from a capital program perspective to be moving forward as fast as possible so that we can get the best price on tenders. And I just am conscious of bleeding into the holiday period where it's quite difficult to get consultation done anyways, and certainly don't want to see this bleed into the new year if it can be avoided. Thank you, Worship.
Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you, Worship. I think I was concur with Councillor Isis. I did read the report that Mr. Davis sent to Councillor Isis this afternoon and referred us to the capital budget, the operational budget within page 522 to 564 to look and see where we could curtail some of the expenses that we're incurring. So I did review that this afternoon. Telling somebody they're going to get a 2.6% 2.55% on their budget, and actually doing it are two different things. And I think the average house was estimated at property at $400,000. I'd like to know where you can buy a house in Innisfil for $400,000. That's not a tear down, basically. The average price is $600,000 in Innisfil. Also, with the county, we're looking at a 2% increase in the budget as well. We're working on that process, so it's going to be a steep one. We were hoping to get in at 1%, so we're going to have to combine that with this as well. And at the county, we're very, very concerned because we've almost reached our maximum in-house financing for borrowing. So it's going to be a rough year for county council, and going into 2021, we know we're going to be using more reserves to try and stabilize, whether it be social housing or health and welfare. We've got a rough year coming for 2021 for the county, and we don't know how we're going to keep that budget increase under 2%. The Canadian statistics for growth for interest increases between 1.8 and 1.9. And we're 0.6% higher than the average for Canada for inflation. So I think we should maybe look at bringing this operational budget to a level that's equal with the rate of inflation and no more than that. And I think staff need to take it back. You've got 2 weeks, take a look at it, come back to us. But I think of all of council, if you go to that section, take a look through the operational where we can possibly curtail a few things until we know how this economy is going to improve.
Just want to make one point of clarification. I'll pass it off to you, Councillor Waters, and that is when Councillor or Deputy Mayor Davidson is speaking of the County of Simcoe's debt capacity, that's in-house debt capacity. They have debt capacity galore, and they have actually very little debt at the county. So I just didn't want anyone to think that it was in-house debt capacity.
I did say in-house debt, that we've reached our capacity almost, but we are concerned about the future because we're about to max that out, which means when we max that out, we start using our outside debt available. And it's a concern we're having for 2021 because we're looking into the future. And I did go through those 40 pages. I think that all of council should look at those and see where possibly we could keep our tax height to the rate of inflation set by the Canadian standards. Thank you.
Could I ask Mr. Davis to just respond, whatever you wanted to respond, but also to address the issue of the average assessment in Innisfil and how that's decided? Thank you.
Your worship and members of council. So I'll address the average assessment. So the county actually uses a firm. It's called MTE, Municipal Tax Equity, I think, Consulting. They provide information for each lower tier municipality, and they're the ones that do that. So keep in mind, we have, the new houses may be 600,000. I wouldn't disagree with that. We also have lakefront property, and we have some other property. So the average is what they provide. But I mean, keep in mind that if we were using 600,000, then we compare what the increase is year over year of that value of home. So I think the numbers would still, obviously the tax bill is going to be higher, but the percentage increase would be roughly the same. So we just use a basis. I think the county themselves actually just use $100,000 of assessment. That's what their basis is year over year. So they don't really inflate it. They just say, what did you pay for 100,000 last year? What do you pay this year for 100,000? We've always used traditionally just an average home, but it's just a gauge for people to understand. They can insert their own assessments and understand then where their tax bill would be. The other issue I just wanted to draw to attention, so we've talked about for years a blended tax rate. So what's the bottom line for the taxpayer? So what's recommended is before you is that's the bottom line. And so we've done some estimates. I looked at the county direction was 2%. Now, granted, if they come in lower than that, that would be great. But because we're growing much faster than a lot of the other municipalities, there's always a shift of the assessment and the tax burden to our residents. So a 2% tax rate increase at the county level really results in a 4 or 5% tax rate increase locally because there's a shift. And so when you look at in the report that I prepared, The town's portion of the tax increase is actually only 0.61%, so we're way below inflation. The town is absorbing the costs of that shift for the county and for the police, actually, because we're actually growing faster in 2019 than Bradford, so there's a slight shift back to the residents. So I just wanted to make that clarification for council. Obviously, previous councils included the capital levy, which was really important for us to, reinstate some of our infrastructure. That's that 1%. So even the town portion plus the 1% levy, we're at 1.61%, and inflation is running about 2%. So we're below that. The town proper is below inflation in this budget. So it doesn't say that. I'm not suggesting the council can't make further adjustments. I just wanted to draw that to your attention that we are actually below inflation currently.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Deputy Mayor, and then, I'm sorry, you've been very patient.
Thank you. I understand that. My concern, and I think Councillor Isis, I'm trying to be as financially, fiscally responsible as possible. We have the mental health issues, people's debt. We have our food bank that it's increasing rapidly. We have there's one more. Our seniors we have now a program I'm working with, 87 seniors that are struggling. If they're in our home, it doesn't, you say, okay, we're below the rate of inflation. I think if we can do better, we can be more innovative to reduce that. I think we use that word quite a bit here. So I think it's a time when we have to start looking, if people are having bigger mental health issues, we have to subsidize Uber more. We're providing larger food banks. I think there's an issue facing us that we're not looking at when we're putting these kind of operational budgets ahead. I know that in the county, our housing starts are down for 2019. I know in the town of Innisfil, maybe is down as well a bit. We didn't lay off any staff. We kept all our staff full going, even though some do a great job. Other times we've had nightmares. And then we're saying there's going to be a boom in 2020. I question that, whether there'll be a pickup again. The county's nervous. I think total county building permits was just over 3,000 for the whole of county. So we've got some concerns that we have to look at. Are we going to keep the same amount of staff and level of service? So I'd just like to get a better look at that. Thank you.
I'll go to Councillor Waters. He's been patient. And then Councillor Nicol.
I figure if I stay silent enough, somebody will answer my question for me, and Lockie Davis did. I was looking for a point of clarification that the 2.55% includes the county, includes education, all that kind of stuff. And the biggest increase, it comes from the county, not for the town. We're well below 1%, so we're well below inflation. So I think the town has done a good job at trying to keep its increases to its residents at a minimum. So I just wanted to clarify that part, that if we're going to reduce it, we're going to be going down from, I think you said 0.6% increase. I think I think staying at 0.6 is probably pretty good. I just want to clarify that. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. We started this last council term, switching to the 2-year budget, obviously give staff and the corporation a better chance for planning to save some money. We debated this 2-year budget a year ago, and I guess if there's some issues or concerns, I think that probably should have been dealt with back then. Staff have actually come in below the expectations that we had already. So with that, I wouldn't support a motion to defer. I think we should get rolling and utilize stuff and not stall staff even for 2 weeks. So I wouldn't support a motion to defer whatsoever. Thanks.
Councillor Ossati.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to say that we agreed to, we sat here for days working on a 2-year budget, 2019, 2020, and agreed to, and this is even like it's right on. It hasn't increased. It's very cost effective. There was some items that and I'm trying to understand. Are you? I guess a question for Councillor Isis and our Deputy Mayor. Are you asking to defer this and we go through this piece by piece as if it was a 1-year budget again to look at what we can cut? Because if that's it, I couldn't support that. However, having said that, while I still have my airtime, I'm going to just ask Mr. Inwood clarification on one item, because we did park for 2020 the docks, and I forget the amount I'm going to say 2 million, 1 million. How would that was parked for further studies. This is approved. How would that one, an item that's been parked, be handled? Thank you.
Thank you. Through your worship, Councillor Sadi, and I'll look across to Mr. Davis to correct me if I'm wrong, but the funding for the docks was capital funding. The funding was approved in the budget, so there will be no additional ask. It's just pending approval of council through the IBP ad hoc committee. So that money, there is no implications to the bottom line budget. That money's been accounted for within the approved budgets.
Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, if I could respond to that, I'm not looking to reopen the whole budget debate. It just, we did spend 2 days in January on a budget, and if we didn't talk about it at this meeting, we would have spent hardly any time, and we've just approved a tax increase that our residents should be aware of that's coming. If this is the opportunity to make changes in what this council has decided for a whole year, and the whole expenditure of 37 million plus 25 million, I think having 2 more weeks to just go over it just one more time. I know, especially with capital, I think it was last council meeting, we had a delegation asking for a capital project to occur on the 9th line. And, if this council felt that, and there was support in that discussion to do something about that, are there priorities in that budget that we would shift? I think the way I understand it, this is the time for that discussion. I wouldn't want that to be rushed, so asking for 2 more weeks to get a proper amount of time to go through some of that, I don't think is unreasonable. So those are the reasons why I put this forward to just defer it to 1 more meeting. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Councillor. First of all, I want to tell you that I have great sympathy for those of you who sat at this table for literally, 2 weeks and then got thrown into a 2-year budget process. I totally get that. It was new to us who've been around a while, so I can't imagine what it was like. But there were more benefits from doing it than there were not. And one of those benefits in particular was for capital. In the old days, we would go through the budgets line by line every year. It'd be the middle of May before we'd approve a budget. So by that time, we're trying to get road work done. We're trying to get water and sewer work done. We have to go out to tender still. It's like September before we get anything tendered. By that time, the contractors all have tons of jobs, so they're bidding, well, I don't need this job, so if I can, I can bid it really high, and if I get it, fine, and if I don't, that's fine too. One of the real benefits that I saw of doing the 2-year, particularly the capital budget, was the fact that you could design 1 year, tender the next, get the tenders out early, like totally dive into these projects and get them done. And I think that we've been quite successful in moving a lot of projects that have been on the books for a long time, 9th Line, Lockhart, finally getting somewhere with those. The reason I wasn't so keen about a 2-year budget was I was afraid that there was too many unknowns, like you said, Councillor, and that we would have said to people, it's going to be 2.6, but then we'd go, oops, sorry, we couldn't, all these unforeseens happened, now it's going to be 3.6. So I was worried about that, but being able to come in, 0.05 lower than what we said, what we approved and what we told people that was they were going to be paying is not, amazing, but it is amazing considering the current climate we're in right now. We have there's been so many cuts. Those of you who sit on conservation authorities fully understand what's gone on there. I sit on public health. So part of the reason for the 2% increase at the county is because they're anticipating like a $1.6 million increase in their public health budget next year. The Police Services Board is going to be in front of us for quite a bit more money because they're looking at adding several officers. And I don't think there's anybody at this table who can say that we don't need in a growing community like ours. And with what's happening in the Greater Toronto area and knowing that that's going to come our way over time, it's just a matter of osmosis before some of that guns and gangs activity gets up here, that these are all things we need to prepare for right now. So understanding that and understanding other cuts that we're seeing from the provincial government right now as they tighten their belt, I was really afraid that we were not going to be able to make the commitment that we'd made back in January. I guess part of my worry about deferring it for 2 weeks is giving people the expectation that in 2 weeks we're going to be able to go through it and find changes and add projects and take away projects. That takes months. We'll start the next 2 year. I'll ask the CAO to respond to that, but I would imagine it won't be April before we're starting work on the 2021-2022 budget. And I remember telling those of you who kind of were sitting at the table in January saying, you're going to be able to sink your teeth into that budget and into the budget, the following budget, because the new councils that come on in 2024 won't have had the opportunity to participate in those budgets before. So while I totally get the concept, and I just think that we committed to a 2-year, we committed to trying it. If it had blown up in our face and didn't work the way we thought it would, absolutely, I would look at, but I'm really pleased with the fact that, you know, we did work with assumptions, but we came in pretty darn close, and we even had the opportunity to kind of take some hits on the chin and still come in under what we had told our residents they were going to see in 2020. But can I ask Mr. Rayner to talk about the next, well, whatever you want to, but also could you add to that what happens now for 2022?
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. Yes, in fact, Audrey likes to remind me that we put the schedule out for the 21-22 budget in January, actually. The work begins. And a lot of that good work is about taking the strategic plan that you've approved to 2030 and breaking it down into the implementation plan that will be in front of you in the 21-22 budget. So that work does begin right away. It's a shockingly large amount of work to prepare for 2 years, but you get the 1 year off, which we think more than compensates and makes good business sense. The other thing I wanted to mention just really briefly, Your Worship and members of council, is that the budget is never put into stone tablets and enshrined. So to the extent that there are priorities that are shifting, shifting below your feet right now and may, in the first quarter of 2020, we are always available for in-year adjustments. Lockie would kick me under the table if I suggested that should be regular practice, but by all means, we are at your disposal, and if there are priority projects that have shifted even in this short period of time, we're happy to go back to the books and figure out what we can do to reallocate funds. But I would suggest to you that would be the exception rather than the rule. So, of the $35 million or the $25 million, can we move that ahead and then ask staff if there are particular projects that come to your attention that you need us to look at? We would be happy to do that. Thank you, Worship.
Deputy Mayor Davidson and then Councillor Sadi.
Thank you. I do concur with Mayor Dolan. I have to think county position, so Mayor Dolan, that there's a lot coming down with budget cuts, and I think that's where the county, some of our cuts came halfway through the year. We weren't prepared for them, so we had to dig into reserves and such to compensate for that cut we've already been hit with. I understand where Councillor Isis and I are going. I think we have a firestorm coming at us with the continuous cuts that we're going to be downloaded, that is the word that we're using at county, from the province. And I just, as you just said, Councillor, Mr. Rayner, that we can change it as we see it coming, because if the province continues to do what they're going to do, we may have to look at this budget and say, you know what, this isn't affordable this year because now we've got extra cost. So I think if council is aware of that, it's going to be a roller coaster ride until we know what the province is going to do across the board. And I just want you to be aware from the county perspective, we're kind of watching that really, really closely. So I will work with Councillor Isis on this motion, but I just want the public to be aware and staff to be aware it's not going to be an easy year ahead of us.
Councillor Sadi?
Thank you. Yes, and I thought maybe to just help Councillor Isis as well, and any of the public watching. Certainly, no one on council wants to rush a budget by and you know, slip it under the, you know, the rug quickly and vote on things that there hasn't been a lot of time investment and a lot of hours in staff reports that went into the budget, which we went over each of the items. But I just wonder if our CAO or Mr. Lockie are able to just provide us a recap of when that budget, we worked on that for several days, then it went off, it's revised, it comes back, there was notices to the public. Can you just give us a little recap of the time frame that the public also had an opportunity to sit and on that? If you could just help with that direction, thank you.
Mr. Davis, or who wants to take that question?
Well, I'll give it a shot. I'm not sure. So we obviously with the new council coming in, so we started the process right for the 2019-2020 budget early in 2019. Or sorry, 2018, before the new council came in. But if you recall, we tabled the budget with you, your first meeting in December of 2018. We tabled the budget, and then the deliberations happened in middle of January. So in that period of time, the budget was live on our website, and so certainly the public had opportunities at that point, once the draft budget was available. Prior to that, there was several different events, and I don't know all of them, where we tried to engage the public in various things, right, input into the budget. We had various sessions in all kinds of places, and where we're trying to get involvement and get information from the public. So we do that, and certainly that will be part of the next cycle as well. We use, you know, the strategic plan as part of the input. And so then when council deliberated, I think there were some amendments and suggestions. So there was a period of time we didn't come back to you until the end of February with those changes. And so there was a fair amount of time in between when you deliberated and when we came back with a final version for your approval for more consultation and input during that period of time. So that's basically the period of time. It is difficult sometimes to get the public engagement into budgets, but we try our best in a whole variety of different innovative ways that our communications folks have tried to engage.
Any other comments? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a comment is that we're always asked to do more with less. And I think as a council and a staff, I think they've done that, because we're coming in at a 0.6 increase that's well below inflation is actually like a budget cut, is that you're trying to do the same thing you're doing last year with less money because inflation is 2%. So we're actually, I think, you know, as staff and as council, I think we've done a good job delivering a budget that's on target, below target. So I just want to give everyone a pat on the back for the hard work that we did do, especially for the new counselors, because I remember my binder, it had like 100 yellow, orange, green tabs in it. And so it was quite the process. So I think we're on line to meet our commitments and our promises to the residents. And I think we should just move on with this and let staff move forward with their projects.
Any other, Councillor Ices?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't disagree with anything really that anyone has said here, except, you know, there's good news to this, like the good work has been done by staff. I wouldn't disagree with that. My thoughts of deferring it just gives our residents a chance they can go online to our budget document and they can just see what's happening, realizing that, you know, there is going to be another increase in their property taxes next year. Yes, Innisfil has done their fair share. We're only, you know, we're less than inflation. If they know that, then they could be satisfied with that. If they're not, they can let us know, and then we can properly deal with it the next meeting, or all's good, and we've at least notified our residents that, hey, we've approved the budget for next year. It's the second year of our 2-year budget cycle. This is what you can expect. So that's my reasoning behind this, and I hope we have support for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good discussion. Any other discussion? So we'll call for the vote. All those in, Councillor, sorry, Mr. Parkin.
Your Worship, just what we kind of figured out here procedural-wise was that you would vote on the motion to defer to deal with 3 and 4, and then whatever happens with that, you'll go back and vote on 1 and 2, just to pass those.
Thank you for the clarification. So the vote right now was moved by Councillor Ices, seconded by Deputy Mayor Davidson, and that's motion to defer the 2 clauses of the recommendation that are seen in front of you. Does everybody understand? All those in favor? Opposed? That's defeated. So we'll go back to the original motion. Motion is moved by Councillor Nichols, seconded by Councillor Van Berkel. All those in favor? Those opposed? 2 opposed? That's carried. The next item, sorry, Mr. Rayner.
Your Worship, members of council, it would be remiss of me not to congratulate and thank our treasurer for seeing us through another perhaps rocky at times, but excellent budget approval. He hates it when I do this, and I promise to be very careful about how I do this, so I won't spend a lot of time talking about it, but I just want to thank Lockie Davis for his many, many years of service to the town, and we'll talk more about that as he decides to move into retirement at the end of this year, but I just don't think we can approve another year's budget without thanking Mr. Davis for his good work. Please join me in a round of applause. Thank you.
And I know if I let Mr. Davis had the mic, he would say, and my sidekick, Audrey.
Yes, definitely. Audrey and her staff, really owe the thanks to them. They do all the heavy lifting there. So for sure, that's their good work that got us here.
Thank you, and we're looking forward to getting our 2021 budget binders. And moving forward with that, and look forward to getting some of our strategic objectives that we worked on together in those budgets as well. So the next item, if it was pulled by Deputy Mayor Davidson and a seconder, Councillor Fowler. I pulled this only because it was needed to kind of give the background information to the budget and where we are in this quarter. And so I don't know if there was any questions or comments on it. I just know that every time I get one of these quarterly reports, I look at it and think, wow, how did we get all that done? But thank you so much for that. All in favor of the recommendation? Opposed, if any? That's carried. And Councillor Nicol, G4.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Van Berkel that this be deferred until the next meeting so that staff can add the information of the reports.
Thank you. Questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried. The RISE recommendation, moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Sadi. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And that the recommendation, so consideration of adoption of all the recommendations we've made, moved by Councillor Payne, seconded by Councillor Van Berkel. All those in favor? That's carried. There is no notices of motion received at this meeting, and I now call for announcements. Any announcements? Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. It's been a couple of weeks since we've been here. Just a couple of comments, I guess. Going back to the soup contest, it was a great turnout at the Go for Soup contest. They raised, I think, approximately $1,500 towards sleeping children around the world. Unfortunately, none of the members of council or the dignitaries won, but it's good to see that all the regular people did. So with that as well, the Cookstown Chamber of Commerce Bonanza, which was held for the kids around Halloween, it was a great turnout that day. Unbelievable how many kids were in downtown Cookstown. And I actually was able to cook 150 hot dogs and a little hibachi in 1 hour. So I think that was all I had. There is an AGM for the Innisfil Horticultural Society this weekend as well, but I know there's many other things that are going on, so I won't push that one. That was it. Thanks.
Thank you. Other announcements? Councillor Payne?
Thank you, Your Worship. I missed what you had said about the ribbon cutting. Whose was it? Or opening? Or did I just totally hear you wrong? Yeah. Okay. I will continue on then. Just to remind the councillors and who would like to attend is the Guardian Pharmacy grand opening that is in Sandy Cove Plaza. He's wanting everyone to attend. He's all excited about this. Also, on the weekend, we all went to the Cookstown Memorial Service. We went to the Lefroy Memorial Service, and it was a great experience. Thank you. And also on the Monday, I had the pleasure of going to the Barrie Remembrance Service. It was very cold, it was very snowy, and it was jam-packed. I have never seen so many people at a memorial service. It was absolutely wonderful. And I thank the mayor for allowing me to represent the town of Innisfil. It was very nice. And we also went to the studio tour, and I just want to congratulate the artists that put their wares and let us go into their homes and look at all the good things and really nice purchases that we were able to make. And there's just so many talented people in Innisfil, and I congratulate you all. Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor.
Sorry, thank you very much, Your Worship. Just my apology that I was not able to attend the remembrance services, with the exception of the Sandy Cove one, because I was out of country at a family wedding. So I certainly had thought of you at that time. Just in Elkona, reminding everyone of the Santa Claus Parade that is on November 24th. And I also, Councillor Van Berkel and Councillor Payne and I attended the South Simcoe Police, was it the auxiliary auxiliary recruits, and it was a wonderful ceremony to attend, and I believe that there was 10 new members, and it's always nice to support that. And that's it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Nicol.
Sorry, Worship, I completely forgot. I do apologize. Just wanted to truthfully thank Councillor Arsati for the wonderful day that she treated my son and Councillor Fowler's son too at the fire hall. The fire chief and most of the firefighters were there. We had practiced some games. We put out some fires. We let off some extinguishers. We tried on the gear. We did the floss dance on the back of the water truck. So it was a great afternoon. I truly appreciate it, and thank you again, Councillor Arsati, for inviting us to that event. Thanks.
Go ahead. Yep, Councillor Arsati.
I'd just like to give some clarification in case anybody watching thinks that I have some special in with the fire department, but they were very kind to honor my 2-year-old live auction bid on the fire department that I had purchased for a fire experience, and I thought it would be wonderful to include Councillor Fowler and Councillor Nichols' sons in this experience, and the fire department at Station 2. The staff were just amazing, giving us a real experience in that, and really is an eye-opener to what we think we have in safety in our own homes. And I think, more of those demonstrations we can maybe put in the community. But I want to thank the chief for wonderful staff who made us feel very welcome. And thank you very much for allowing me to cash in on a 2-year-old voucher. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Any other comments? I just wanted to, sorry? Councillor Van Berkel?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just I was thanking staff as being on the Remembrance Day Committee. I want to thank our staff for the wonderful work they did here, as well as in Cookstown, and for all of council supporting Remembrance Day. It showed great support and respect for our veterans, and I truly appreciate it, and I know that all the rest of the committee appreciate it. But thank you, staff. You did a great job. And it was a pleasure sitting on that committee. Thank you.
I just want to take a moment to thank council members, because as you can imagine, this time of year gets quite busy with not just reading agendas and going to committee work and going to council work, but attending all of the Remembrance Day ceremonies, the Santa Claus parades, the ribbon cuttings, and the church suppers and bazaars. And so thank you for all the commitment and time that you put into our community. Reminding everybody that the farmers market has not gone away, that it is open every Thursday, and it is moved inside at the Y. And also that Nantar Shores is holding a special shopping day on Saturday morning. And finally, another announcement, another sad day for the community. We lost another important citizen, John Bucko. For those of you who know Cookstown Auto, that's been there forever. Mr. Bucko was the founder and operated that business for, I would hate to say how many years, but I'm thinking about 40 or 50. He passed away after a long illness, and he's a very generous person in our community. Anybody would know he's always the guy who filled the command post at the Cookstown, the Tanger Outlet Mall every year with baskets and baskets and baskets of toys for the kids. Never said no to sponsoring any Little League, anything. And it was actually kind of sad irony that he donated to decorate an entire room at Matthew's house, and that is where he spent his last hours. So our condolences to his wife, Olive, and the Bucko family. And then just on a lighter note, I just want to end with saying that this week was very emotional because of all of the Remembrance Day services, but also I want to tell you that Sunday night at 7 o'clock, I received a phone call. I was on a live radio English television English radio station in Seoul, South Korea to do an interview. So it was Sunday night here, but it was Monday morning in Seoul, South Korea, and they wanted to learn about Innisfil and our sharing economy and our Uber and our Rover, and they were very excited to talk about all of the innovative things we do in Innisfil. And then a day later, we end up with a team from a university in Sweden arriving here again, was traveling to many large cities around the world and arrived in Toronto to be told, oh, you have to go an hour north from here and visit this great municipality called Innisfil. So just such a proud time to be part of this community and to be your mayor. So thank you. Mr. Rayner.
Your worship, members of council, just two quick announcements if I could. The first is that the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing has posted to the Environmental Registry the proposal to extend Innisfil Heights as proposed in our official plan. Do I hear the hallelujah? I'm sorry, I'm not sure. Anyway, we'll wait until, we won't count our chickens till they hatch. It's on the posting until December 13th. So we'll report back if we can, but to get that expansion to our employment lands provides a significant competitive advantage to land assembly for large industrial manufacturing, distribution logistics centers, and work that council has been very, very busy with for many years. And I would say that in large part, this is due to the good work that Her Worship continues to do to build relationships with the province, with this government, and with the Minister of Municipal Affairs. So we appreciate your work, Your Worship. Secondly, just very quickly, I just want to thank Sandy Foster for the really good work that she's done on the our health plan. Thank you, Council, for endorsing it, but I didn't want the night to go without thanking her. It's a tremendous amount of work that's gone into that proposal. I think as you read through it, you probably got a good sense. This is not a surface document. It lays the foundation for how we can approach this moving forward. So I just wanted to publicly thank her very much. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Rayner. For those of, if you can think how long we've been doing the South Innisfil Creek Drain, we've been dealing with OPA 1 for at least, I think, through 3 mayors that I've been, or 4. I guess I'm the 4th. So we've been dealing with since Brian Jackson, through Mayor Bagley, Mayor Walkup, and myself. It's taken all that time to get this far. So it really is. So make sure you log on to the EBR and post all these wonderful comments. All right, that's lots of announcements tonight, but all good ones. So that's, well, most good ones. So the confirming bylaw is moved by Councillor Van Berkel and Councillor Payne. All those in favor? That's carried. And the adjournment is by Councillor Nicol and Councillor Fowler. All those in favor? That is carried. Thanks, everybody, and good evening.